Hello, my friend.
Hey,
How are you?
how are you?
Can you hear? I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
No, you are in the distance.
Hold on. Mike?
Well,
Can
while
you hear
you
me?
fix your mic, I just want to introduce everybody to the New Theory podcast. I am Jason Venturelli, your new host of New Theory podcast. Tom LaVecchia is still in the background helping produce this show, but I will be taking over. We are going to be talking about business, entrepreneurship, sales, everything happy in life. We'll talk about family, money, everything that makes us keep ticking and waking up in the morning. But without further ado, we have a very special guest, a friend of mine, Vinny Bracco from Brooklyn. Vinny has an amazing story. Well, I think is an amazing story, and I think you guys will too. Raised in Brooklyn, was on the streets, grew up around wise guys, but he took the educated, straight lifestyle, went to school, went onto Wall Street, made a lot of money. And then later in his life, he decided to go another route, which we will get into, which I found very interesting. But this podcast is strictly about entrepreneurship and business. So everything, whether it be the streets, organized crime, or the legal business, we are always going to be talking about business, the money involved, whether it's legal or illegal, and the guests that we have here. So, again, without further ado, Vinny, welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for joining me. How are you today?
I'm good, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. So I think we might have a little bit of an audio issue here. You're kind of in the background.
Yeah, I have it high. I could actually try to come on with another device if that's easier for you. Want to just stay like this?
Well, let me see if I can fix it on my end here. Hold on. Well, either way, let's hope that this comes out great because we are we are going to get ready here. We're recording, so let's go here. So you can hear me okay though, right?
Yeah, are we on yet?
Yes, we are on.
Okay. I
All
can
right.
hear
Well, I
you.
can hear you faintly. I hope the I hope the audience is going to be able to hear you. But you can hear me good, right?
I can hear you. Yeah, it's low, but I can hear
Okay.
you.
Well, hey, listen, our first show here will mine, so we are going to have some difficulties and we'll have to iron them out. So, Vinny, listen, I want to first get into growing up in Brooklyn, your parents, what was your childhood like, you know, as far as your home life, going out into the streets, and again, your family life. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, the neighborhood, and the family
Well,
life.
I grew up in Long Island. I was very young. I had asthma, and unfortunately, my parents, instead of moving out to Arizona, brought me to Brooklyn. I guess it was a drier climate there. Came there about 7 years of age in Bensonhurst and hung out until I was about 10. Then we went to West 8th Street. And West 8th Street, I'm 10. I can understand what's going on in the world. My dad was a street guy, he always worked. And started getting the flavor of what Bensonhurst is like. You have to remember it was 1970, so it was a little different than it is now, or
Yeah,
even in the
give us a
80s.
time. So we want to give away your age here, but from when was your adolescent years?
Late 60s, early 70s. I'm 60.
Okay.
So it was a lot different time. The neighborhoods where I grew up, originally West 8th Street, everybody was on their stoop. We called it a stoop.
Yep.
Um,
Just like the Bronx
Everyone
Tale,
used their
right?
basements. The two metal trap doors were open. People would use their basements to live and just slept upstairs. These were the houses, on the West streets. So, yeah, things were much different in that day. And I was a kid, so I didn't know much about anything. Then we moved to Bay 20th, which is right around the corner from 18th Avenue. And now I'm a teen and I'm starting to see people and how they act and started gambling a bit. I'm 17, 18, learned the social club was a couple of blocks away. found the Bookmaker, and then you start really, you have friends from all over the place. Oh, I know this Bookmaker, I know this one. So you start meeting people and seeing the way it is in the real world, which was our world, you know.
All right. Can you see me now?
I hear you.
All right. We got you. So continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I started meeting guys, and then as you get a little older, now you hit 19, 20. They look at you a little differently. You're not, it's amazing. Go look at your high school picture from the time you're 18 to 22. You look like you gained 10 years. So they start treating you a little more adult-like. When you're still a kid at 17, 18. When you're 22, they have a lot of guys in the street at 22. So they look at you a little more capable, just not with your hands or just making money, just capable as an adult. They try
Right.
to see what you're about. At 17, they don't give a damn. So then I started, meeting some people and not doing anything illegal. Just I knew enough people where people knew not that I was around anybody, but that I was hanging out with the crowd that was considered the in crowd in the neighborhood, which are, the guys that are respected, a couple of wise guys and stuff like that.
Right. 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 And let's touch base back on your father. Your father was a straight guy. He had a job, or he was mixed in both worlds.
Mixed in both worlds.
Mixed in both worlds. After the 9 to 5, he went to the social club.
Yeah, he was out at night in bars and stuff like that, loan sharking, stuff like that.
Right, right. And at a young age, would he bring you around that element? Just not to get you involved, but um, just because you were his kid. Hey, come down to the club with me. Come have some.
No,
No.
because by the time my dad got ill about 37, he had a stroke. He was fine, but he was pretty much out of that stuff by then. So I was a kid when he was really involved. By the time I'm in my 20s, he had been ill already. He was on disability now. By then, really not involved much. So he didn't take me really anywhere to speak of. I was all on my own doing that stuff.
Right, right, right. So let's go into your education. You did good in high school.
I did okay in high school. I got a great mark on my SAT because it was never about being smart. It was about cutting class. But I got a good
Right.
mark on my SAT. I got into a couple of different colleges. I ended up going to NYU, and I was still a screw up, but I got through. And then I got my master's later in life.
But let's go. Let's take it back a little bit. So NYU, you got in expensive school. Your dad
Yeah,
paid for it. Student loans. How did that go?
yeah. It was. I think it was like 5,000 or 6,000 back then. It wasn't that much. Student loans, Pell and BEOG, they called it back then. Yeah, and got
Gotcha.
student loans from the Dime Savings Bank. I remember, and did that, and then just wallowed a bit. I worked at Merrill Lynch in 1981 while I was going to school. Started.
You
That's how I
interned
started.
there.
Excuse me.
You interned at Merrill Lynch.
Yeah, yeah. Cash management account, CMA. I was a part timer there. This way I could go to school, and then they moved to Somerset, New Jersey, like in '83. So I wasn't going there because I didn't have a car at that time. It was all the way out in Jersey. So I went to Prue Base on 100 Gold Street. One of the guys that I was very good friends with who passed of cancer, Frank Simo, great guy, he went to Prue Base because he didn't want to go to Somerset either. And he got me the job there at Somerset because one of the executives from Merrill Lynch, Joe Gambale, who Miller Field in Staten Island we used to play football with, he went to Prue Base. He didn't go with Merrill. So he remembered me because we used to play touch football and stuff at Miller Field, and he hired me there. So I was there. And that was in
Nice.
my early 20s.
So Merrill Lynch. So Merrill Lynch is where it started.
Yeah, 55 Water, yeah.
Nice, nice. Okay. So from there, you made your money, and what were you cold calling? You were doing 300 calls a day. I mean,
No, not with that. With that, I was really just working cash management accounts. Back then, they were the only place that had a debit card attached to a bank account, and people would, uh, dispute stuff. And we'd go to One Liberty Plaza, OLP. There was a little shuttle bus every half hour from 55 Water. And back then you had microfiche. And I'd have to go through all the fiche to get the guy's signature on the credit card receipt, make a report. So that's really, I was a clerk. That's all I did.
A clerk.
My friends also. Well, Frank wasn't. He worked full time. He didn't go to college. Right out of high school, he worked in the vault. But yeah, I think I made about $5.50 an hour, $6 an hour. That's all I made.
No connection through your father or a friend of a friend to get into that life.
No,
right,
not at all. Actually, it was a girlfriend that I had, like 17 or 18 she was, and her brother, who was with IBM, was dating a girl from Merrill Lynch. And she asked if I wanted a job part-time. I don't know how it came up. And Roseanne, and she's the one that got me the job.
Right. All right. So, okay. So let's fast forward now. So from there, you're working and you're like, this banking, finance, this is for me. This is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
And so what's the next step from there? Where do you go? Where do you see yourself? Like, I want to become this. I see this guy. This is where I want to be. I want to have the corner desk in Manhattan. Like, where did you see yourself in that financial world?
At that age, I didn't see myself anywhere, honestly. In fact, that at that age, at 21, 22, we had the key to the time clock, and I'd be at Aqueduct half the day, and my friend would be clocking me in. We were making more money than the full timers. Terrible. But that's what we were doing. I didn't see myself as anything, honestly. It was just a part-time job for me. And then I went to Prue Base. When I went to Prue Base, it was a full-time job. And I remember I went there in around 84 because I remember the Challenger in 85. I was there and we put the television on in there. But that was it. I was a screw around. I worked security at a club, Shout, in Manhattan when I was 24. That was pretty much it. I really started taking things seriously toward the late 80s when I got engaged and I said, I better do something.
Now, when we say late 80s, now we all know about the crash in 87, Black Monday. Are you saying before that time? You were there for then? After then? What? After.
Around 88.
88. Okay, so the stock market picks back up. Everybody's going nuts. 88, everything's back to normal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now your next move. You see what?
I put an application in for Kidder Peabody, a good stockbrokerage at the time. And I remember I was making in 1988 about $26,000 a year, which wasn't terrible. I didn't have that much experience or anything. I had most of the college done, and then I continued. And then in the 90s got my master's when I went back. And I worked for Kidder for a few years, went to the Equitable in 91, went to the Equitable, and life and health, that's all. And I saw to make money, life and health, I was making, I don't know, half the policy. If the policy was $3,000 for the year, I got $1,500 within 2 weeks. What happened was I signed one for Universal Life because it's connected to the stock market, Universal to financial instruments. I couldn't write that policy. I got like $100 for it, but the broker made like $1,000. I said, "Oh, this shit isn't going to fly." So I started getting sponsored. They wouldn't sponsor me because they were an insurance company. So what I did was I went to Bear Stearns. I hawked and hawked and hawked, and I got that, and they sponsored me. For your Series 7, you need to be sponsored. So I got sponsored there, and that's when I went back and got my degree, master's, and worked hard for a few years.
Right. So master's. Okay. So now the money starts coming in when you start saying, this is for me, this now you're making real money.
I wasn't making any money really until, negligible, but maybe around 95, I started making about 100. And then, but I was working hard. Remember, I was going to scores with clients till 4 a.m. and getting up at 7 a.m, having to go again. It was hard. And back then you could cold call, Jason, because before the Madoff stuff and everything, now you can't cold call. No one would trust you. But back then you could. So I'd have college kids. I'd be paying them like $10 and they'd be making 100 calls just to get me through the gatekeeper. I just wanted the appointment. Once I got the appointment, I felt confident enough that I could maybe
Right.
even get something. But you need things in your funnel, like sales. You need enough in your funnel where something's going to hit. And I was pretty diligent, and I worked hard. I did work hard, and I had gotten married in '90, and by '96, '97, I had a 2-year-old, and it was rough. It was rough. I was
And
on
how
the
old are you at
but I
this
was young.
point?
I was 36 years old.
36. So 36, you're doing around 100 a year.
About 100.
Okay. So now you're working your way up, or you're just maintaining the same position. You see there's more money to be made because go ahead.
There was more money to be made, but you had to really work very hard for it. And at that point in '96, I started uh, moving the games. And I met someone on a plane going from Vegas back to New York, and he was with a bunch of guys, the night owl to get back, and we hooked up. I was betting at the time, and his voice sounded familiar after about 3 months, and it was him. So we ended up getting together, and he told me what he did. It was for MIT and for all these people. Billy Walters, a big shot gambler, and my regular job waned. I still worked it, but there was so much cash being made on the other end. I probably wasn't as hungry as I would have been if I was just working the one job.
Right, right. So now 9 to 5, or I don't know,
10.
9 to 7,
Yeah.
right? So you're doing your job. On the side here, you're doing some gambling,
Yes.
and you kind of just, brazed over the MIT thing. So
Yeah.
the gambling, now you meet somebody who has the connection with Billy Walters, MIT. And for those of you who don't know, when we talk about MIT, we're talking about that blackjack crew that went out to Vegas
Right.
and was counting cards, right? And there was a
Right.
movie done with Kevin Spacey about that, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
This was a different crew. Same basic idea, but these were the sports gamblers, not the blackjack players. There were a bunch of people involved in stuff. These were there were about 12 or 15 of them. These were the sports guys.
Right.
The
Well,
MIT guys I
just
never dealt with that were doing the blackjack.
right. And MIT, there's the guys that do, programming, and they make, millions into programming, and now you got the sports betting or the blackjack games in Vegas. So there was a lot of crews,
Yes.
that came out of MIT and kind of made their own way in different markets and made millions, whether it was, again, off market, in the illegal, doing it illegally or legally. But so this crew was a different crew that did the sports gambling, correct?
Right. Right.
So now you're working, you're working your day job, you're
Mm-hmm.
doing the sports betting, getting the information with your partner at the time through the MIT guys. And what are you doing? You're taking you're pushing the action off onto a local street guy. I mean, even then, I don't even think the online online sports betting was around. So you're
Yeah.
taking it from your local, corner guy, correct?
Yeah. He had it set up already where he had an apartment building in Elmhurst, and an apartment, and we would go in. We had 5 or 6 bookmakers on Autodial, and they would call us Jets -6. We'd have all our guys in speed dial. What's the line? Now we were beating them because you weren't hooked up into computers back then, and so they would call us back 2 minutes. What'd you get for us? We got the Jets -6 for 15,000, 3,000 at laying 7, stuff like that. And we'd get calls throughout the day, football during college and pro, and we got 10% of whatever they won. There was a guy in a laundromat king is the guy we would settle up with every week. Owned Harry. He owned many laundromats, and we would settle up cash with him. And then once every 3 or 4 weeks, we go to Vegas and bring money. Sometimes 100, sometimes
But you're
60, 70.
taking, so you're not even putting out your own money.
No.
You're taking 10%. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're splitting it 5%.
Who's the bank here?
Hmm?
These MIT kids aren't the bank. Who's the bank?
Billy Walters.
Who
We're
your
betting for
friend
him.
knew, and Bill. Right. Okay.
We're
So
making his
a guy like Billy Walters, and sharks and big sharks out there, they can't just walk into a Vegas casino and put 10,000 or 100,000 on. These
No.
guys got to find different avenues. Maybe he'll send a runner to, 2 casinos and another runner to another 2 casinos.
Right.
And he's got to switch those runners up in Vegas. Then he'll maybe go to a local guy like you in New York, a local guy in LA, Miami, wherever, all across the nation. So
No,
just for him to get off $300,000 in bets, he's got to have 10 guys out there.
I heard that he had probably at one time over 100. Chicago or any big city.
Yeah, Chicago too. Yeah.
And we were just a small part of it.
Wow. Okay, so let's get back. So you're doing that. You're whining and dining at night. I mean, you're working your ass off 9 to whatever 7. I mean, you're burning the midnight oil, right? And how long did this go for? How long does this go for?
I left work in 99.
You left work in 99. But was there some point, and when everybody thinks of Wall Street, to this day, they think of 500,000, 400, 500, 600,000. I have a friend who's a banker in the city. He's up there in those numbers. In your Wall Street career, were you up in those numbers?
500.
500. So what was your base? I'm sorry?
Back then they gave bonuses.
Right. So what was your base? 200 and 300 bonus?
240.
What's that?
240.
240? Okay.
At the highest, yeah.
240, and the rest would be your bonus. Now, and what firm was this with at
Bear Stearns.
Bear Stearns that inevitably fell apart in 2008 with the crash.
Yeah.
Right? Correct?
Park Avenue. Yeah.
Right. So, but you left in 99, Bear Stearns.
Around 90, yeah, I think January 99.
And how long of a run, and exactly what was your position at Bear Stearns pulling in 500,000 a year? What was your title? What did you do?
Well, they had me down as a director of global marketing, but really, they give people titles so they don't have to pay them. You look at kids and they'll say, "Well, make you a VP or $50 more a week." I'll take the VP card because it's impressive. That's what they used to do to the young guys. Banks, everybody's a VP in a bank because they could do that instead of giving you money. But I was like an assistant director. I was behind the scenes in sales, and people that managed small cap funds. They were dealing with mortgage-backed securities. I don't know if you know what that is. Yeah, and stuff like that. And I would just had a team.
Are you on the sell side, or you were just the orders come in, you execute orders? Like, what side of that were you on?
Sell side.
The sell side. Okay.
Sell side. Yeah.
Okay, so you had a book of clients. You would get new clients, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You'd have to schmooze those clients, right?
Maintain them. Yeah,
maintain them, right? Yeah. And your performance would indicate your bonus, right?
Right. If something was expiring, coming off the books, to keep them going. If someone's family member died that left them the money, convince them to stay there. That happened a lot, where someone would be left $10 million.
Right.
And then, why would they stay with us?
Right.
So we would have to convince them, stay here. That was your parents.
Right. Keep your money here. Right.
And that was a lot of it. And that's what the bonus is, where
and what maintain. And what was like you can't go to Goldman Sachs with, 500,000 in your account. You got to have minimum, I think, of, even at the small level, I think of 5 million or 10 million. What was your, you don't talk to anybody who doesn't have a net worth of under.
Back then it was $1.5 million.
$1.5 million to get into the door to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay. Now they had smaller accounts there that you could have 300,000 in or something, but that wasn't going to the director department. That was going more into the stock brokerage, cash management accounts, all that stuff.
Gotcha. So you're making this kind of money. Something happens. You had to stop working.
Yeah, I just left. I was getting lazy.
You were burnt.
I'm getting very lazy, and I didn't want to work the late nights anymore. They were doing a little reorganization, and I would have had to have the hours. Now my son is 4, and where my wife was working from home a lot. Now she was out, and I felt, I'll stay home, and I was making enough money with the other things.
Gotcha. Right. And the side income became a real moneymaker, and that was kind of easy to walk away from the 500K, correct?
Well, the bonuses had stopped, so I was making.
Oh, the bonuses stopped. That's right.
250.
Okay, even 240.
That was a lot of money.
240.
It was a lot of money, but I was making, some weeks I made 15,000 with the other thing, 4,000. But you got to remember, we're moving. If they win 200 on a weekend, we're getting 20,000. There's 10 each.
Wow.
And then there were expenses. Our nut was 4,000 a month with, rent and all that stuff because we had that apartment. But I didn't want to do anything out of my house. And in fact, I came up with this great thing. People were getting busted around us. So what I do was we rented 2 apartments, 5G and 4G. The phones would be listed to 5G. We'd run the wires down the side of the building into 4G. If they have a warrant for you, it's 5G. They go to 5G where the phones are registered. And we'd hear them, we're in 4G. They have no warrant for our apartment.
Wow. That's something.
Yeah.
So let's again fast forward. So now you retired. You quit in '99. So you're not working for anybody.
Yeah.
Got you.
No.
Okay.
Just home.
Got you. Right. So now you have a health incident in 2000. What year was that?
What, the health incident?
Yeah.
2003. I was with my son. He was about 8. Going, you have to lean down. The water bottles on the bottom, right around the corner from our house, lunch candy store. And I woke up in the hospital. And
wow.
They came over. Did you take your insulin? I said, what insulin? So they looked at my bracelet to make sure it was really me. They said, you're not diabetic? I said, no. My sugar was like 700. I had a stroke. They said, you had a stroke. Now, they can't tell you had a stroke with a CAT scan today. It would show up a week later. But they said, how have you felt? You're not thirsty? You're not urinating? I said, I'm always up late, which I always was. So I figured I'm just tired all the time. I was only like at that point, I'm like, what was I back then in 2003? I'm like 43 or whatever. And I just, I was tired, but I attributed it to just being tired, getting up at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So that's when they found out I was diabetic, and I slowed down a bit. I just slowed down on purpose, try to just feel better. And I was always running around, and then in 2007, I was diagnosed with bipolar. And a lot of it made sense. The constant running around at night, the loving the action. There are a lot of people that aren't bipolar that like that stuff. But my world was a little too chaotic. I always had to be on the move, continually on the move. And people would say, like, you're doing 10 things tonight. What's going on with you? And it explained a lot when I sat down after I was diagnosed and thought about it. I said, yeah, maybe I really was,
Wow. So all that's going on, and there's no W-2 on you. There's no 1099 for a number of years. You're cash.
Yeah, cash. But my wife had always worked, and she made over 6 figures. She was first a top executive at 9X, and then went to the government. And it was like level 14, so she made good money. So we showed it. We had income.
Right. But you couldn't show what you couldn't go out and buy $1 million house even though you could afford it, because then
no, but we could, you could have 2 cars on that side. No one would question you. We didn't have a Rolls outside.
Right.
Or anything. So no one's questioning you. I only had one child. Always had one child. So and it was an apartment. I never bought. So I had an apartment. So no one's going to really question you. I wasn't out there spending tons of money. I fit into the neighborhood.
Yeah. So now let's again go fast forward another couple years, and now you decide to go into business with some gentlemen, but go into business on your own, essentially. And what was that? What year? And what did you do? Tell me that story.
I really couldn't hear you. What year? What with the club?
So we fast forward to I'm not sure what year because we spoke early before this interview, but fast forward to 2000, circa
Oh, I started getting
2009,
back out.
8, 10, 11, where you could decide to go into business for yourself.
Well, after 2007, I recouped for a year and a half, 2 years, and then a friend of mine at a social club. I had always gambled in that social club. I knew him for years, so he had a problem with his cousin who was robbing him. So he asked me to come in because I would deal with him. He knew I moved games. I knew him that long, so he he asked me to come in just until after the Super Bowl and run the place because he had no idea. He's an old Italian, not an old guy, but he had no clue gambling. So I came in to the club. I took it over, became a partner in the club. Not
Now you
knowing
had a buy-in.
what? Yeah, 10,000.
You had a buy-in. You had to put up your own cash.
10,000. This we put 20 in the kit because we didn't have big players, and I took a lot of players that I had. I bought a bookmaker out that had quite a few customers that I used to deal with in the 90s. They knew me, so I opened up the islands and had people. My friend was still in the islands. I reconnected with him, the guy I used to move with. We hadn't been together since he had gone to Costa Rica 2001. So like 13, 14 years. So reconnected with him. He's in Costa Rica and a lot of common players. So even though I was only making, I don't know, 1,000 a week in the club, but I'm again in the high numbers with the players. Had a couple of people that collected for me. So I'm in that club, but never knowing that the guy that my partner, who he kicked out his cousin for kind of robbing, it was under investigation already. And I had no idea. They've been under investigation for 2 years already when I went in. And one morning, February 8th, I believe, 2011, it's in the paper. 6 o'clock in the morning, my wife at the time knocks on the door, wakes me up and says, the police are at the door. I said, what? 6 agents, they walk in. I'll never forget. I said, you think you have enough guys? And one of them laughed. And I knew what they would have for. I knew it was the club. It couldn't be anything else. I wasn't really involved in anything else.
Right.
And they searched the house. They got 80,000 out of the safe. It was the Enterprise Corruption Organized Crime Task Force state. And my son was having issues at the time. And they had heard I was bugged for 3 months. I was followed. And they I'll never forget, the cop said, I'm looking in your eyes. I'm a father. You have anything to hide in his room? And I said, no. And he said, close the door, let him sleep. I thought that was really cool. I know a lot of people don't like cops. That was a cool thing. I thought that was very cool. And they took all the electronics out of the house. And I said, that's his iPad. I said, I can't, and they let me keep the iPad too. Well, it was his. So they were fair with me. In fact, they went over to my wife and said, he's the only one without a gumad, and that includes a 75-year-old. They said, get him a good lawyer. He has bad friends. Because they felt within those 4 walls I was a criminal. The other guys, they felt, walked around like they had a license. And ultimately, one guy did 9 months because he walked around like he had a license. The oldest guy in the crew, actually. He was like 64. He did 9 at Rikers, 9 months. But so, yeah, I was devastated. They took every dollar I had. They froze the bank accounts, the safe deposit box, which I didn't have much money in, but it was enough to sustain. I had a bail hearing. I had to scurry around because I had to show where the money came from. $10,000, anything over 5,000, it's a bail hearing. They have to approve where the money's coming from. You have to show bank receipts and shit. And the banks were locked out. They were frozen. So it was hard to get it. In fact, my wife had gone to her cousin, who was an attorney. Embarrassing. It's a straight family, telling what happened. And he gave her the money. And because he's an attorney, he's a reputable guy. You know, they have to agree with it. The bail bondsman, the DA has to agree where the money's coming from. So, and they offered me a plea. They said, who's this, who's that? I said, I have no idea. And they said, what do you mean you have no idea? You're in London Lenny's all the time with them. And I said, don't know what to tell you. So they said, you're going to do 18 months for obstruction. I said, well, can I eat first? And then you can take me, get me away from my neg and wife and kid. They said, get him the fuck out of here. So I was facing 5 years, 18 months for obstruction. I agreed if they took the 80,000, I didn't fight for it. I probably wouldn't have won it back anyway, but it ties the money up. If I let it go now, they could just take it. I forfeited the 80,000, took the C felony because I wasn't willing to say anything about anybody. So I took the C, which I didn't want to take a C felony. I could have gotten off with a misdemeanor, but I wouldn't give anybody up. And took the C felony. I figured at that age, I was 49 at that age, 50. I said, I'm not going back to work anyway. What's the C felony going to do? I didn't care. I wasn't looking to get in trouble again. So I figured, what do I have to worry? I had non-report probation. That was part of giving the money up. That they would give me non-report because they knew my son was having some problems. And I told the judge, and my lawyer goes like, he says, do you want to say something? Because I'm talking to my attorney. And the judge says, and my attorney goes like this, like, oh my God. I said, Your Honor, I'm bipolar. I didn't use that as an excuse. I know what I did, but my son is having issues, and I just got him out of the house. And I know in probation, if you have a probation officer, the first few months, they don't let you do anything. He's playing AAU. It was winter. He was playing hockey. I said, if they don't let me take him, he'll be set back. He asked the DA, and I'll never forget, the DA said, we stand silent, meaning it's your decision. So he gave me where I went to non-report. I met the probation officer right after getting sentenced in the next room. And they said, the judge said, if you get caught here again, whether me or whomever, you're doing 5 years. It's Christmas, a late Christmas gift for you. That's what they said. And I got non-report. And then after about 2 years, they'll cut your probation sometimes. And they'll say, we cut it. And they cut it. I got a relief from disabilities, which means I could do everything but run for office. And that saved my licenses. Because I had to go before the board to save my licenses.
Yeah.
And but I got a relief from disabilities. I can't run for office. I can vote. I can do everything else. So that was pretty cool because generally you can get in other states expunged. They don't expunge felonies in New York. They don't do it because I wouldn't pay now 10 years. Like I can't go to Canada. My son likes to go to the Ranger games. I'm afraid they won't let me in. So what I'm going to do is you can apply for forgiveness in Canada. And it's long enough now where they'll let you in. But I'm afraid to go with him. They might not let me in.
Right.
So
no need to take the risk.
I've stayed clean. I don't deal with those people anymore because there's no reason to. I don't do that stuff anymore. So why would I see them? Once in a while, I saw one in the gym, actually, my old partner. I used to visit him in Rikers for the 9 months. But I saw him, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Gave him a kiss alone. But that was it. I don't see those people anymore. I think I've run into 2 in the last 10 years.
At your peak, Vin, and we could just touch a little bit about, that's an amazing story, actually, but I want to touch at your peak in the bookmaking industry. What's a day in the life? Give us, before we go here, give us a day in the life. You woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning. You were at the social club by 9. You're looking at the lines. Bets are coming in by 12. Who's collecting where? How many runners you got? 10,000, every week, 60,000 every week. Give us a day in the life or a week in the life of that game.
Well, when I had the club, I get up around 8:30 because there were a lot of cash bets. People would come, when they win, they're there at 9:30 in the morning. I'd go get the racing forms, the books, put on the coffee. By 10 a.m., I was in the office. You had people collecting or getting ready for the horses. People came in to bet in the afternoon because I didn't have the lines till 12 or 12:30. I was there till 5, closed the club, but then I'm doing all the work at night. Football tickets, I had probably 500 football tickets. I had a couple of people grading with me on the weekends. It was a lot of work. The work I did, I probably worked 15 hours a day in the club. And thank God I had the people in the islands betting because it wasn't worth it. I think the Joker poker machines were taking $5,000 a month. The rent was $2,000 a month, so that covered everything. But just a pain in the ass because the guy, my partner, knew nothing. I mean, I had to do everything.
But I mean, people think that you were actually running a business. You're back to the hours again, grinding, right? I mean, was a lot of work.
Absolutely, it's harder to not work than to work. It's easier to work a job.
Gotcha. I hear you. And at your peak, give us, your best month, the operations best month, 100,000 a week, 400,000 a month. I mean, and as a small operation, I mean, okay, were you a small operation? Were you considered a small operation? Were you considered a medium, large, what?
The club was very small.
Small. What does a small operation
A
bring
million a
in?
year,
A million a year.
a million
A
a year. But we
million a
had three
year,
partners.
small operation.
Yeah, a million a year. We
Wow.
made maybe 50 a piece. Wasn't
And how
for
many
the outlet.
guys did you have
Wasn't worth it.
go? And how many guys did you have going out there collecting for you?
We had three partners. I had three clerks that worked different days. And just basic shit. Really, it was a lot more in the life when I was moving games, not working, because that's when I'm going to different bars. I'm going to restaurants. I'm meeting people. I'm not getting going till mid afternoon because in the islands when my moving games really was on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. There weren't all the football games every night of the week, and back then. So really, they weren't playing baseball. It was football season. So we were really on the weekends busy. But we'd roam around. We'd go to Little Italy. I knew the owner of Ferraris. Back then, they had the cafe. They don't have it anymore. Now it's just a bakery. We'd go and have a cigar and sit with our Zambuca, and we'll do all that shit. Play the part. But we were dealing with offices that were big offices. They were real guys. So we'd meet with them just as, hey, how you doing? And that would be the deal there. It wasn't that we were gangsters, but I always say, if you're putting money in people's pockets, they treat you much better than the hired help that break legs, because the bottom line is money.
But you're in that environment. You're in that environment. You're in that world. The guys you're around, they're either loan sharks, they're either bookmakers themselves, they're made guys. So for that time period, you went from, let's go back to the beginning of our story, where you were a straight guy and you stayed off the streets and you got educated, went to the W-2 or 1099 or whatever you call it, but you were living that straight life, working for big firms. And, later in life, come full circle, you're on the streets, as they say, running a business on running a big business on the streets.
Yeah. It ended up.
That's
You're running your
fascinating,
own
though.
business.
That really is it's fascinating that at 18, 19, 20, you said, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going this way.
Right.
And then, it just either sucks you back in, or it's just you're around that environment. And just give me what made you, what I'm trying to get is, what made you get sucked back into that life? Was it you weren't working? Was it the money? Was it the downtime? What was it that at 18 you didn't do it, but at 40, 50 something years old you did?
It was gambling. It
was a gambling.
Liking the gambling in the nightlife.
You love the action.
The action. The lights, camera, action. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Stock brokerage is action, but it ends when you come home. This was 24/7 for me. And that's where the bipolar comes in, where I always wonder, Jason, if I wasn't bipolar, if I would have gotten sucked into all that.
Yeah.
And that's the question I always ask myself, and I maybe never have an answer for it. But I always wondered if the bipolar, because mine was mania, manic. That was my problem. And I always wondered if the mania caused me to need that excitement.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's an amazing story, and everybody watching, so me and Vinny are friends, and so I knew a little bit about his story, and I just thought it was so interesting when he told it to me that I just had to hear more, and I definitely wanted to share it with you guys. So, Vinny, I appreciate you sharing that, and listen, tell everybody where they can find you, what you got going on now, and go ahead.
I have Brooklyn Guy Vinny Bracco. That's my channel, YouTube. It is dedicated to really mental health. I try to help people with bipolar, but it's a hybrid channel. I talk a little bit about mob genre, although I want to get away from that because it's annoying. I notice when I talk about it, I get excited again. I'm being serious because it brings me back.
Switch goes off.
Yeah, it brings me back to youth, exciting stories. I know I would never do it again. And that's the reason I never let bipolar define me. But because I've had opportunities to get back in the street, and I believe the medication, I realize the detriment that it would cause. So I wonder, is it I'm older? that I got in trouble, or is it really I'm medicated and I'm not bipolar anymore, so I don't need it?
Right.
Don't know, but whatever the case is, the YouTube channel helps me. I'm with the Four Horsemen, with you and Tom and
Yes.
Joe, and it really helps me because I like a group setting. I enjoy it. Working with you guys, I like friendship. I have friends for 45 years that I still
Yeah.
talk to every couple of days. And I like that environment. And going off on my own with the YouTube helped me to meet you guys. So right there, it was worth. I helped one person who called me from Canada that had an illness, and the kid is now in rehab. And
Good.
so without subscribers, I could care less. It helped one kid, and that's all I wanted to do with my channel, to show
Yeah.
that you can live a pretty good life even if you're mentally ill, but you really have to kind of try a little. You can't just expect the world to help you. You got to go out there and try a little yourself. And that's what I'm doing with the Four Horsemen. We do a lot of fun things with my own channel, Brooklyn Guy, Vinny Bracco. I try to make it a hybrid channel where I have a lot of the subscribers in the chat. I intermingle with them a lot. I do some interviews. Like tonight, I'm doing an interview at 8 o'clock with Justice Tech Pros. And he is the son of Stephen Crea, Dominic Crea. And it's going to be
Interesting.
a great,
Yeah.
if anyone's available, watch that. It's going to be terrific. And I want to get more into the interview side. Tom Levecki has been a big muse to me, you know, Tom, because he's a wonderful interviewer. And his Armchair MBA is an amazing channel. Your New Theory that you've just taken over is amazing. And, you know, I think there's a lot to go around out there. And I think if you help one person, right, the best is helping one person that you may never meet.
Right.
You
Yeah.
changed their
I
world,
agree.
and it's paying it back, right?
I agree. I agree. And that's the theme of the show, along with the business category, the entrepreneurship,
Mm-hmm.
sales, and just living a good life, treating each other kind. And that's what we're bringing, your show, this show, Tom's show, the Four Horsemen. So, but yes, Vinny, thank you so much. It's a
You're very welcome.
pleasure to look at your handsome face and to be around your aura all the time. So, Vinny Bracco, Brooklyn Guy. Guys, check him out on YouTube. He does a lot of live streams. He's a great guy to talk to. So, YouTube, what would it be, Vinny? It would be Brooklyn Guy, Vinny
Brooklyn
Bracco, and
Guy.
they'll just find your channel, correct?
Thank you, Jason. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, listen, I'll
Wonderful
see you
talking
soon,
to you,
buddy.
buddy. I'll see you
Thank you.
soon. Bye
Be
bye.
well. All right, guys. So thank you for joining me tonight. That was our very special guest, Vinny Bracco. Guys, tune in next time for the New Theory podcast. Again, I'm Jason Venturelli. I'm your new host. We are going to bring you a lot of businessmen, women talking about entrepreneurship, how they got started, where they are now, and just again, a lot of positive vibes from this podcast, and we want a lot of learn things about business. We're going to do live streams. People can ask our guests questions, ask me questions. And again, Tom Levecki is still involved in this program. He's helped producing these shows. So guys, be kind. I'm Jason Venturelli. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time. Take care.